Now, there's concern that a High Court ruling banning wild camping without the landowner's permission will put a stop to training for the 10 Tools Challenge or the Duke of Edinburgh Awards scheme on Dartmoor. The National Park was the only place in England and Wales where you could camp overnight without requesting permission, but that changed on Friday. One head teacher told Spotlight this will be catastrophic for youngsters taking part. As Andrea Ormsby reports, landowners, the Park Authority and organisations have been meeting over the past few days to try to find a solution.
The 10 Tours is a challenge you don't forget. 60 years and thousands of youngsters later, there are fears over its future. A High Court ruling on Friday means it's now illegal to wild camp on Dartmoor unless you have the landowner's permission, a potentially complicated process for the many hours of training needed.
It's a complete catastrophe for our children, and the reality is that many of their grandparents could wild camp and did wild camp. So my reaction is that something has got to change, I hope, and it's got to change very, very quickly because the chance to do the training for 10 Tours is just not there anymore now.
Well, it's kind of what the camping symbolises, because we live in a world where we feel controlled and there's lots of ownership, and now Dartmoor, the place of freedom, is being taken away from us.
It also is part of the experience. Some of the most beautiful moments are the sunsets and sunrises that you get to see, and you just can't have that anymore.
It's a place where I can just enjoy myself, think about whatever I want to, kind of takes the stress off exams and everyday life.
Yeah, as an athlete, I get a lot of pressure around competitions, but when I'm on the moor, it feels like I've got freedom. And without wild camping, it's you don't have the same amount of freedom as you would otherwise.
And it's not just the 10 Tours. Organisers of the Duke of Edinburgh's Award are worried too.
The timing really couldn't be much worse. Young people are coming out the aftermath of the pandemic, and they're dealing with a cost of living crisis, and actually access and free access to the outdoors is really important at this point in time, but particularly wild camping. Wild camping gives young people a sense of independence, adventure and freedom, and it really is important for their resilience to be able to continue activities such as these, and we really shouldn't be putting barriers in their way.
There's a plea from local authorities to work together for a solution.
As local authorities, I want us to come together in a summit. I'm sure that we're all horrified about this court finding and seeing how we can support. There could be some expertise that we have within our legal sections of the council. There could be other elements where we can work together to actually seek to turn this towards local people.
The largest landowner is the Duchy of Cornwall, but other landowners say the 10 Tours and the D.A.V. Awards will be safe.
It's inconceivable that either of those things would be stopped on duchy land. And then a lot of the private owners, like myself, are wild campers ourselves. And we welcome responsible wild camping.
The landowners have been meeting since Friday to find a solution and say they'll have more information tomorrow. Andrea Ormsby, BBC Spotlight, Dartmoor.
Now, happy birthday to our colleagues at BBC Radio Devon and BBC Radio Cornwall. 40 years ago today, they took to the airwaves for the very first time. Over 4 decades, the stations have built up an audience of loyal listeners and been considered the voice of their counties. But the anniversary comes as the BBC plans to share more local programmes between stations. John Danks reports.
Good morning now from Truro, because it's 6:25. You're tuned to BBC Radio Cornwall. Yes, I'm Chris Blount, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome you to your very own local radio station.
We had 2 weeks of rehearsals of training on the new equipment in this brand new station. They were very expectant. I mean, I reckon it was more exciting than the rocket launch.
On the same day in 1983, the launch pad for BBC Radio Devon was a muddy garden in Exeter. While the new studios were built, broadcasting continued from these portable cabins.
You can see what it's like. You can possibly not hear the trains at the moment or the dumper truck as it's going by, but we're managing very well indeed.
Over the years, both stations' listeners have raised millions of pounds for good causes. From funding an air ambulance in Devon to a new cancer unit in Truro.
You've been instrumental in helping us support large community projects and smaller ones too through your generosity. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you for helping us to make a difference.
And it is 40 years since the momentous day when BBC Radio Cornwall started broadcasting. I was the second youngest person on the station back then. I'm now the oldest.
Morning, Fitz. Happy anniversary, radio.
Local radio's connection with its audience coming through loud and clear.
You are all friends to me, and I'm so grateful to you all.
I think the audience has always been really close to us and shared their lives and their hopes and their dreams and everything with us. And it's been following those stories through that's been so important.
While the stations reflect on the past, there are concerns over the future. In October last year, the BBC announced it was planning to cut local radio programming in order to prioritise digital content.
We're not going anywhere. We're still here. Radio Devon, Radio Cornwall will still be here in the future. In fact, we're even investing in local journalism, so we're hoping to get closer and to bring more stories and be closer to our audience than ever before.
After the teams in Plymouth and Truro linked up online to celebrate today's anniversary, there was only one thing left to do. John Danks, BBC Spotlight, Plymouth.
Very nice cake it was too. Now, how are you when it comes to dealing with prickly